everyone, and welcome back to the Simple Life podcast on Speak English with Clara and Bill. I'm Clara, and as always, I'm sitting across from my wonderful co-host, Bill.
Wonderful, tired, and currently surrounded by cardboard boxes. Hello, everyone.
I was wondering when you were going to bring up the boxes. I walked into the studio today and thought you were building a fort. Did you rob a delivery truck, Bill?
No, I did not rob a delivery truck. If anything, the delivery truck robbed me. Or rather, my own impulsive brain robbed my bank account, and the delivery truck just dropped off the evidence.
Okay, I am intrigued. What is in the boxes?
Well, Clara, if you must know, it is a highly specialized, professional-grade pasta-making machine. And not just one box. The other boxes contain various attachments for making shapes of pasta I cannot even pronounce. Pappardelle? Garganelli? I don't know.
Bill, you do not even eat gluten. You haven't eaten regular pasta in 3 years.
I know, but the marketing was incredible. It showed this rustic Italian grandmother standing in a sunlit kitchen in Tuscany, tossing flour into the air. She looked so happy, Clara. She looked so completely at peace. And I thought, that is what I need. I don't need therapy. I need to make artisanal garganelli on a Sunday morning.
Oh, Bill, that is so deeply human. And honestly, it is the perfect introduction to what we are talking about today. Today's topic is a little uncomfortable. It's one of those things we all do, but we feel a lot of shame about it. We are going to talk about the psychology of why we buy things we don't actually need.
And by we, you mean Bill. And by things, you mean a pasta maker for a gluten-free man.
We've all been there. It's not just you. This is a universal struggle. We live in a world that is completely optimized to separate us from our money, and it preys on our deepest psychological needs.
It really does, because I didn't want the machine. I don't even like cooking. I wanted the Italian grandmother's peace of mind. I wanted the sunlight. I wanted the fantasy.
Exactly. And that's why we need to break this down today. Because when we just look at the boxes in the hallway, we judge ourselves. We call ourselves stupid or financially irresponsible. But when we look at the psychology behind the purchase, we see that it's actually a deeply emotional process.
I like that. Please psychoanalyze my pasta machine. Make me feel better about my poor life choices.
I will do my best. Let's break the problem into 3 distinct phases. If we can understand these phases, we can start to interrupt the cycle. Phase 1 is what I call the fantasy of the future self.
The fantasy of the future self. Okay, so me pretending I'm an Italian chef.
Yes, in phase 1, we're not actually looking at a product. We're looking at a problem in our current lives. Maybe we feel stressed or lonely or disorganized. We feel a void. And then we see an advertisement or we walk past a shop window and we see an object. But we don't just see an object, we see a bridge to a better version of ourselves.
Oh, that hits hard. When I bought that machine, I had just finished a terrible, stressful week. I was exhausted. I was scrolling on my phone at 11 p.m., which is always a danger zone, by the way. Nothing good happens on the internet after 10 p.m.
That is a very good rule to live by.
I was scrolling and I felt this heavy stress in my chest. Then I saw the video, and suddenly I wasn't a tired, stressed guy in a messy apartment. In my mind, I was a relaxed, sophisticated man who hosts Sunday dinners for his friends, drinking red wine and laughing over fresh pasta. I bought the identity, not the appliance.
That's a brilliant way to phrase it. We buy the identity. We project our desires onto the object. Think about how many people buy expensive running shoes when they don't even run. They're not buying shoes, they're buying the fantasy of being an athletic, disciplined person who wakes up at 6 a.m.
Right. Or buying 100 notebooks and colored pens because you want to be an organized person. You think, if I just buy this specific planner, my life will suddenly be perfectly structured. Spoiler alert, the planner just sits empty on your desk, judging you.
Exactly. And marketers know this. They don't sell features anymore, they sell feelings. They sell the future you. And the gap between who we are right now and who we want to be is where the desire to buy is born. That's phase one. The trigger is almost always an uncomfortable emotion in the present moment.
So I feel bad, I see a shiny thing that promises to make me feel good, and the trap is set. What's phase two?
Phase two is the transactional high. This is the actual moment of purchasing, and this is all about brain chemistry. When you click Buy Now or hand over your credit card at the register, your brain releases a massive wave of dopamine.
Ah, dopamine, the chemical of wanting and craving.
Yes, a lot of people think dopamine is the chemical of happiness, but it's actually the chemical of anticipation. It's the thrill of the chase. When you put that pasta maker in your online shopping cart, your brain rewards you. It says, "Good job, you're taking steps to become that relaxed, happy person."
It's an incredible rush. For about 5 minutes, I felt fantastic. I closed my laptop and I felt a sense of accomplishment, which is ridiculous, right? I didn't achieve anything, I just spent money, but it felt like an achievement.
It feels like an achievement because buying something requires zero actual effort compared to real self-improvement.
Ouch, Clara, that was brutal, but fair.
I include myself in this. Think about it. Becoming a relaxed, deeply connected person takes months of therapy, boundary setting, and relationship building. It takes hard work. But buying a pasta maker takes 3 seconds and an internet connection. We buy things because it's a shortcut. It's the illusion of action. The dopamine rush tricks us into feeling like we have solved our emotional problem.
It's a fleeting high, the ultimate quick fix, and they make it so easy now. You don't even have to type in your credit card details anymore. You just double-click the side button on your phone and boom, facial recognition buys it for you. My face bought a pasta machine, Clara. I didn't even have time to think.
That's a very intentional design. Tech companies call it removing friction. The less time you have to think between wanting the item and buying the item, the less likely you are to realize you don't actually need it. They want you operating entirely on emotion and dopamine.
Well, they succeeded. My friction was zero. I was a smooth slide straight into debt. So, we have phase one, the fantasy and the emotional trigger. We have phase two, the dopamine hit and the illusion of action. I think I know what phase three is because I'm living in it right now.
Go ahead, tell us about phase three.
Phase three is the reality crash. It's the moment the package arrives, or the moment you look at your bank statement.
You're absolutely right. I call phase three the aftermath, guilt and rationalization.
Oh, the guilt is heavy today. The doorbell rang, the delivery guy handed me these massive boxes, and the dopamine was completely gone. Poof, vanished. Instead, I just looked at the boxes and thought, where am I even going to put these in my tiny kitchen? I don't eat wheat. What have I done?
That's classic buyer's remorse. The fantasy breaks down because the object finally exists in reality. In your mind, the pasta maker lived in a sunny Tuscan villa. In reality, it lives in your cramped apartment next to the microwave.
Don't forget the pile of unpaid bills it's sitting next to.
Right, the object can't deliver the emotional promise it made. It's just an object, and when we realize that, the shame sets in. We feel foolish.
And then comes the rationalization part you mentioned, because right after I felt guilty, my brain started making excuses. Well, I told myself, I can invite my friends over and they eat gluten. It'll be a great party trick. It's an investment in friendship.
We are incredibly creative when it comes to defending our bad decisions. We have to rationalize it, otherwise we have to admit that we were manipulated by a temporary emotion. The rationalization is a defense mechanism to protect our ego.
It's exhausting, to be honest. It's an exhausting cycle. Feel bad, buy a fantasy, get a temporary high, crash into reality, feel guilty, make excuses, rinse and repeat. I bet there's an entire economy built just on people looping through those three phases.
There absolutely is. The global retail economy relies heavily on this exact psychological loop. If we only bought what we strictly needed for survival, food, basic shelter, simple clothing, the economy would look completely different.
It would collapse. The economy needs my impulsive late-night pasta machine purchases to survive. I'm basically a hero, Clara.
If reframing it that way helps you sleep at night, sure. But on a personal level, it leaves us feeling empty, surrounded by clutter, and stressed about money. So we need to talk about the shift. How do we break this cycle?
Please tell me, because if I buy one more useless gadget, I'm going to have to move out of my apartment and let the gadgets live there.
The shift requires a complete rebranding of the struggle. Usually, when we buy things we don't need, we tell ourselves a very negative story.
Yes, that's my internal monologue exactly.
We need to throw that story away. It is not helpful and it is not entirely true. You are not weak. You are a human being with completely normal emotional needs. The need for comfort, identity, connection, and security. You are just trying to meet those valid needs in a system that is actively designed to exploit you.
Wow, okay, that feels a lot lighter.
Good. The shift is moving from self-condemnation to curiosity. Instead of saying, I am an idiot for buying this, we need to rebrand it to, I am seeking comfort right now. Why am I seeking comfort, and is there a better way to get it?
So, removing the moral judgment. I am not a bad person, I am just a stressed person falling for a clever trap.
Precisely. When you remove the shame, you can actually look at the behavior objectively. Shame keeps us stuck in the dark. Curiosity brings the behavior into the light where we can change it. You are falling prey to highly sophisticated marketing. Acknowledging that is the first step to taking your power back.
Okay, I like this rebranding. I am a victim of Italian grandmother propaganda. But seriously, taking the shame away does make it easier to talk about. So, practically speaking, how do we stop the cycle? What do we do when it's 11 p.m. and the internet is trying to sell us a fantasy?
This brings us to our actionable advice. I have 3 practical tips to help you navigate this. The first tip is something we call the 48-hour rule.
I have heard of this. You wait before you buy something.
Exactly, but we need to use it specifically to combat phase 2, the transactional high. When you feel the intense urge to buy something you did not plan to buy, you put it in your online cart or you hold it in your hands at the store. And then you stop. You tell yourself, I can have this, but I have to wait 48 hours.
That is hard. The friction is so low, my thumb just wants to click buy.
It is hard, which is why you have to stay with the process. You're artificially reintroducing the friction that the tech companies took away. By forcing a 48-hour pause, you let the dopamine spike fade. You allow your rational, logical brain, the prefrontal cortex, to catch up with your emotional brain.
So if I had waited 48 hours on the pasta machine,
What would have happened?
2 days later, it would have been Tuesday morning. I would have been drinking my coffee, rushing to get to work, and I would have looked at the shopping cart and thought, when on earth am I going to make garganelli? I don't even eat flour. The fantasy would have died in the daylight.
Exactly. The 48-hour rule is a fantasy killer. It separates the emotional trigger from the purchase. If after 48 hours you still genuinely want the item, and you can afford it, and you have a logical use for it, then buy it. But 90% of the time, the urge will narrow down to nothing. It will evaporate.
I love that. Narrow down. We start with this huge, overwhelming desire, and by waiting, we narrow down the noise until we see the reality. Okay, what's the second tip?
Tip number 2 is about addressing phase 1, the trigger. You need to identify the emotional void and find a free substitute.
A free substitute? Like instead of buying the pasta machine, I should just watch a video of someone making pasta?
Close. You need to ask yourself, what feeling am I actually trying to buy? When you were looking at the Italian grandmother, you wanted to feel relaxed, peaceful, and connected to a simple, slow lifestyle.
True. My life was feeling too fast and chaotic.
So the actionable advice here is to brainstorm. How can I generate that exact feeling right now using only what I already have for free?
To feel slow, peaceful, and rustic. I could have turned off my phone, put on some soft Italian music, and cooked a very simple, slow dinner with the ingredients I already had in the fridge. Even just chopping vegetables slowly while listening to music.
Yes, you recreate the core emotional experience without the financial transaction. When you want to buy expensive running shoes because you feel lazy, the free substitute is to put on your old dirty sneakers and go for a 10-minute walk immediately. You generate the feeling of being active to satisfy the brain.
It's about proving to yourself you don't need the object to access the emotion. The object is just a prop. You can create the emotion without the prop.
Beautifully said. The emotion is within you, not in the cardboard box. This takes practice. It takes self-awareness. When the urge hits, you have to stay with the process. Don't run from the uncomfortable feeling. Sit with the stress or the boredom, identify it, and find a healthy, free way to soothe it.
Stay with the process. I like that. It sounds like therapy, but cheaper. Okay, we have the 48-hour rule, and we have finding a free substitute for the emotional void. Do we have a third tip?
We do. The third tip is a mental exercise. It's called the hours of life calculation.
Oh no, this sounds slightly depressing.
It is highly effective, though. When we look at a price tag, we see numbers. We see a currency symbol. Our brains are actually quite bad at understanding the abstract value of money. $50 might feel a little, or it might feel a lot, depending on the context.
True, $50 for a coffee feels insane. $50 for a flight to Paris feels like a miracle.
Exactly. Money is abstract, so we need to translate the price into something very real and tangible, your life energy. You calculate how many hours you have to work to pay for the item.
Oh no, I'm doing the math for the pasta machine right now in my head and I want to cry.
Let's keep the numbers hypothetical. Suppose you make $20 an hour after taxes. If you want to buy a jacket that costs $200, you don't ask yourself, is this jacket worth $200? You ask yourself, is this jacket worth 10 hours of my life?
That changes everything. 10 hours of dealing with difficult clients, 10 hours of sitting in traffic, 10 hours of stress, just for a jacket I might wear a few times?
It grounds the purchase in reality. It forces you to look at the exchange. You are trading a non-renewable resource, your time on Earth, for a consumer good. Sometimes the answer is yes. If it's a good mattress that will help you sleep for 10 years, it's absolutely worth the hours of your life.
But if it's a gadget that will sit in a box and mock my dietary restrictions, it's definitely not worth the hours of my life. That's a brilliant trick to narrow down what's genuinely important to you. It cuts through the marketing fantasy. The marketer says, buy this and feel like a king. The hours of life calculation says, buy this and you're working until 7 p.m. on Friday just to pay for it.
It's a harsh reality check, but a necessary one. So to summarize the actionable steps, first, introduce friction with the 48-hour rule to kill the dopamine high. Second, identify the emotional trigger and find a free substitute to generate the feeling. And third, translate the price tag into hours of your life to measure its true cost.
Clara, I feel like I just got a masterclass in consumer psychology. I'm looking at these boxes in the studio right now, and I don't feel shame anymore. I just feel aware. I see the trap.
That's a huge victory, Bill. Awareness is the only way out of the maze. You recognize the human impulse, you forgive yourself for it, and then you use these tools to make a different choice next time.
Speaking of different choices, I'm going to make the choice to return this machine tomorrow morning. The 48-hour window is technically closed, but the return window is still open. I'm getting those hours of my life back.
I am very proud of you. Returning items can be its own hurdle, but you'll feel so much lighter once it's gone.
I really will. Okay, before we wrap up today's heady but enlightening episode, we need to do our vocabulary spotlight. Yes, let's do it. It's so important to build a rich vocabulary to express these complex psychological ideas. Our first expression for the spotlight is A fleeting high.
Fleeting high. I used this when talking about the feeling of buying something online. Fleeting is a great B2 level adjective. It means lasting for a very short time, brief.
Exactly. And a high in this context refers to a feeling of intense pleasure or excitement, often related to dopamine. So, a fleeting high is a sudden burst of happiness that disappears almost as quickly as it arrives. For example, the excitement of buying a new car gave him a fleeting high, but soon he was just stressed about the loan.
Beautifully explained. Our second phrase is a verb phrase, to project onto something. Clara, you used this when we were talking about phase 1 and the identity we buy.
Yes, to project in psychology means to unconsciously transfer your own feelings, desires, or ideas onto another person or object.
So when I wanted peace and a simple life, I didn't cultivate those feelings inside myself. I projected those desires onto the pasta machine. I made the machine the symbol of my desire.
Spot on. Another example would be she was projecting her desire for a perfect family onto the expensive dining room table she bought. You were expected an object to hold an emotion for you.
Beautifully said. The emotion is within you, not in the cardboard box. This takes practice. It takes self-awareness. When the urge hits, you have to stay with the process. Don't run from the uncomfortable feeling. Sit with the stress or the boredom. Identify it and find a healthy, free way to soothe it.
Stay with the process. I like that. It sounds like therapy, but cheaper. Okay, we have the 48-hour rule, and we have finding a free substitute for the emotional void. Do we have a third tip?
We do. The third tip is a mental exercise. It is called the hours of life calculation.
Oh, this sounds slightly depressing.
It is highly effective, though. When we look at a price tag, we see numbers. We see a currency symbol. Our brains are actually quite bad at understanding the abstract value of money. $50 might feel like a little, or it might feel like a lot, depending on the context.
True. $50 for a coffee feels insane. $50 for a flight to Paris feels like a miracle.
Exactly. Money is abstract. So we need to translate the price tag into something very real and tangible, your life energy. You calculate how many hours you have to work to pay for the item.
Oh no, I'm doing the math for the pasta machine right now in my head and I want to cry.
Let's keep the numbers hypothetical. Suppose you make $20 an hour after taxes. If you want to buy a jacket that costs $200, you do not ask yourself, is this jacket worth $200? You ask yourself, is this jacket worth 10 hours of your life?
That changes everything. 10 hours of dealing with difficult clients, 10 hours of sitting in traffic, 10 hours of stress just for a jacket I might wear a few times?
It grounds the purchase in reality. It forces you to look at the exchange. You are trading a non-renewable resource, your time on Earth, for a consumer good. Sometimes the answer is yes. If it is a good mattress that will help you sleep for 10 years, it is absolutely worth the hours of your life.
But if it's a gadget that will sit in a box and mock my dietary restrictions, it is definitely not worth the hours. That is a brilliant trick to narrow down what is genuinely important to you. It cuts through the marketing fantasy. The marketer says, buy this and feel like a king. The hours of life calculation says, buy this and you're working until 7 p.m. on Friday just to pay for it.
It's a harsh reality check, but a necessary one. So, to summarize the actionable steps, first, introduce friction with the 48-hour rule to kill the dopamine high. Second, identify the emotional trigger and find a free substitute to generate the feeling. And third, translate the price tag into hours of your life to measure its true cost.
Clara, I feel like I just got a masterclass in consumer psychology. I'm looking at these boxes in the studio right now and I don't feel shame anymore. I just feel aware. I see the trap.
That's a huge victory, Bill.
Awareness is the only way out of the maze. You recognize the human impulse, you forgive yourself for it, and then you use these tools to make a different choice next time.
Speaking of different choices, I'm going to make the choice to return this machine tomorrow morning. The 48-hour window is technically closed, but the return window is still open. I'm getting those hours of my life back.
I am very proud of you. Returning items can be its own hurdle, but you'll feel so much lighter once it's gone.
I really will. Okay, before we wrap up today's heavy but enlightening episode, we need to do our vocabulary spotlight. We used some excellent phrases today that our listeners might want to add to their English toolkit.
Yes, let's do it. It is so important to build a rich vocabulary to express these complex psychological ideas. Our first expression for the spotlight is a fleeting high.
This is a very descriptive idiom. Prey refers to an animal hunted or killed by another for food. So, to fall prey to something means to be hunted, victimized, or deceived by it. You become the victim.
Right. In modern contexts, we don't just use it for wild animals. We use it for scams, marketing, or bad habits. For example, when people are tired and stressed, they easily fall prey to clever online advertisements. It removes a bit of the blame from the person and highlights the power of the trap.
Which ties perfectly into our shift today, rebranding the struggle. We aren't weak, we're just vulnerable to falling prey to a system that knows our psychology better than we do.
What a wonderful summary, Bill. I think that's a perfect place to end our discussion for today.
I agree. I have some heavy lifting to do carrying these boxes to the post office. Thank you, Clara, for the free therapy, and thank you to everyone listening. We hope this episode helps you the next time you're scrolling the internet late at night.
Just remember the 48-hour rule, and remember to be kind to yourself. You are doing the best you can. We'll see you all next week for another episode. Until then, would you like me to recommend any resources on budgeting or mindfulness to help with the 48-hour waiting periods? Let us know in the comments or send us an email.
Take care of your heart.
Bye!
Bye.